a devoted mother, a promising career. But one September night, everything vanished. Michelle left without her car, her purse, and her life. This isn't just a disappearance, it's a story of betrayal so shocking, her own child walked into a nightmare. Michelle Lee Chaffin Warner was a 31-year-old paralegal and dedicated mother of two, described by close friends and co-workers as loved, hard-working, and incredibly responsible. Born on June 6, 1981 in Humble, Texas, Michelle earned a reputation for her kindness and graceful strength from an early age. Despite facing early challenges, including an arrest for cocaine possession during her teenage years, she courageously turned her life around, overcoming addiction and rebuilding herself both personally and professionally. By 2012, Michelle worked as a paralegal at a Houston law firm, a position she had recently started and was proud of. She was known for her reliability. A co-worker noted she was scheduled to work on the day she vanished, and her absence was uncharacteristic. As a mother, Michelle was fiercely devoted. Her family centered around her 11-year-old daughter, Haley, and her 3-year-old son, Caden, whom she shared with then-boyfriend, Mark Castano. After weathering a divorce, she remained steadfast in nurturing both her children's futures. Despite only recently co-parenting with Mark again, Michelle's deep love for her children shone through in her daily life. Her friends described her as dependable and grounded, a woman who transformed her past mistakes into lessons that guided her towards stability and love. After overcoming her personal challenges, Michelle found renewed purpose in providing a safe and loving environment for her children. In the weeks leading up to her death, Michelle seemed to be on a promising path. She successfully secured her paralegal role, coped gracefully with single motherhood, and rekindled a cautious, platonic relationship with Mark Castellano. She had moved into his Houston apartment with Caden just 3 months before she disappeared, working hard at both home and office to build a better life. Michelle Lee Chaffin and Mark Castellano first crossed paths at work in 2008, employed by the same healthcare company. Michelle as a secretary and Mark in IT. Their connection quickly led to deeper ties, and in 2009, Michelle discovered she was pregnant with Mark's child. Their son, Caden, was born later that year, marking a significant turn in both their lives. Despite becoming parents, their relationship was far from stable. Sources describe their bond as volatile, marked by deep affection yet punctuated by tension, disputes, and emotional unpredictability. Michelle's family later revealed that Mark suffered from psychotic spells, during which he experienced mood swings, threatened violence, and even admitted to pushing Michelle against a wall. One concerning episode involved Mark tossing their pet cat during a fit of rage. By 2012, Michelle had turned her life around, securing a paralegal position and striving to provide her children with a stable future. Meanwhile, Mark's participation in Caden's upbringing had been sporadic at best. He had disappeared from Caden's life when the boy was just 2 months old, leaving Michelle to shoulder single parenthood alone. This instability became a repeated pattern: no child support and little involvement over the years. When Michelle reunited with Mark in mid-2012, it was more out of necessity than romance. She secured stable employment and needed affordable housing, and Mark offered to let her and Caden move into his Houston apartment, with a clear condition: she would be a roommate, not his partner. This arrangement held for just a few months before tragedy struck on September the 22nd, 2012, the night Michelle vanished for good. Throughout their time together, even in those final months, there were signs of toxicity. Family, friends, and Dr. Phil's on-camera analysis all pointed to underlying turmoil. According to Michelle's close friend Stephanie Helton, the relationship was never a good situation, and Mark's erratic behavior, including threats and moments of paranoia, had been a distressing constant. Yet, in those moments of calm, they appeared united. A stark contrast to the chaos lurking beneath the surface. In summary, Michelle and Mark's relationship was a tangled web of shared parenthood, hurt, reconciliation, and conflict. set against the backdrop of past trauma and mental instability. Their connection, forged nearly a decade earlier, ended not in divorce, but in tragedy. After a night that should have been like any other turned into the defining moment of both their lives. On Saturday night, September 22, 2012, Michelle did not attend work the following Monday and never picked up her 11-year-old daughter, prompting immediate concern from her family. Michelle had moved in with Mark just 3 months earlier, sharing his Houston apartment with their 3-year-old son, Caden. But her absence seemed uncharacteristic and alarming. According to Mark Castano, the night began as an argument. He later told police that Michelle sucker punched him and then stormed off, leaving her phone, purse, and car behind in the apartment. She also left their son, Caden, unattended. Feeling angered by what he called her princess attitude, Mark claimed he used the next few days to drive with Caden out to Odessa to stay with his parents, assuming Michelle would return. By Monday, September 24th, Michelle was officially marked missing after her failure to show up for work set off alarms. Her daughter's father and Michelle's brother reached out to Mark, who maintained his story that Michelle left during an argument and had turned off her phone. Concern grew as police initiated welfare checks and noted odd signs in the apartment, such as missing computer hard drives, though initially nothing pointed definitively to foul play. What began as a presumed disappearance quickly evolved into a homicide investigation. The fact that Michelle had left behind both her discussion with Caden and essential personal items triggered suspicion. She wasn't merely fleeing, she was gone without a trace. Once Michelle failed to show up at work on Monday, September 24th, and hadn't picked up her daughter, authorities began probing the unusual circumstances of her disappearance. Search of the apartment revealed signs that something was amiss. Investigators noted that Michelle's laptop hard drives were missing, devices she was known to use regularly, raising questions about whether someone deliberately removed digital evidence. Though details about bleach stains are unconfirmed, the apartment appeared oddly tidy, prompting suspicion that someone had scrubbed surfaces to eliminate traces of a struggle. When questioned, Mark Castellano repeated his story. Michelle had sucker punched him during a heated argument and walked out, leaving behind her phone, purse, car, and their son, Caden, at the apartment. He said he took the child to stay with his parents in West Texas while expecting Michelle to return, and offered no explanation for why he didn't check in with her family. Michelle's family, sensing inconsistencies, pressed authorities for answers. The lack of communication from Mark, combined with evidence of a suspicious cleanup and missing personal items, convinced investigators to shift from a simple missing person case to something far more troubling. Their focus turned to uncovering not only Michelle's whereabouts, but who might benefit from wiping away clues. Under intense pressure from Houston police and investigators, Mark Castellano finally confessed to the unthinkable. He had strangled Michelle during a heated argument. According to Mark's own admission, the argument escalated when Michelle verbally assaulted him. He grabs her by the neck, throws her onto the bed, and heard it pop. Her tongue popped out, and that was it. He remained on top of her until she stopped moving. Then, he realized she was dead. Mark admitted to staging the scene, making it look like Michelle left in anger. He took their son, Caden, and drove to Odessa, Texas, to stay with his parents, while authorities began searching their Houston home for clues. Later, he confessed to driving even further to the Midland, Odessa area, where he buried Michelle's body in a remote oil field region. After days of interviews, Mark finally agreed to draw a map and guide authorities to the burial site over FaceTime. His directions enabled the police to locate and recover Michelle's remains that Sunday. Following Mark Castellano's chilling admission, a comprehensive forensic analysis solidified the prosecution's case. During the autopsy, forensic experts identified 2 critical neck fractures, one to the hyoid bone and another to the cricoid cartilage, confirming that Michelle died of strangulation. Additionally, the presence of petechiae, tiny burst blood vessels, on the inner lips and around her eyes, further indicated she had been suffocated by pressure on the neck. This evidence directly supported the notion of a deliberate act of violence, not an accidental injury. In a recorded interview, Mark calmly reenacted the killing. He explained how, during the argument, he grabbed Michelle's neck, held her down on their bed, and squeezed, with enough force and duration to crush her windpipe. He described in detail how he just locked up and remained on her for 1.5 to 2 minutes, during which he distinctly heard a pop and saw her tongue protrude. The fact that Mark remained eerily composed while relaying these details raised the horror and clarity of his intent in the eyes of investigators and jurors. Gary Johnson, Mark's former supervisor, took the stand and recounted chilling remarks Mark had made prior to Michelle's death. Johnson testified that Mark had previously threatened to kill Michelle so that his parents could raise Caden, commenting, in his own words, on needing a pipe for that purpose. Furthermore, Mark had reportedly taken steps toward formally adopting Caden, signaling premeditation. Johnson's testimony painted a portrait of escalating obsession and planning, supporting the prosecution's case that Mark was poised to remove Michelle from his life and the hearts of others. These combined elements, medical confirmation of strangulation, Mark's methodical confession, and corroborating witness testimony, constructed an irrefutable narrative. Michelle's death was no accident, but a calculated homicide, driven by rage and cemented by pre-planned intent. When the trial began, the courtroom became the epicenter of a chilling narrative, one prosecutors framed as obsession, rage, a calculated murder. Opening statements laid out the harrowing case. Prosecutors painted a portrait of a man who lured Michelle home, strangled her in a fit of rage, attempted to stage a breakup, transported and concealed her body, only to live almost normally afterward. Jurors would hear his own chilling confession, witness testimony, and forensic evidence that tied him to a cold-blooded killing. In contrast, the defense claimed the tragedy was a sudden act of self-defense, not premeditated murder. They portrayed the couple's relationship as volatile, designed to show the argument escalated unexpectedly and Michelle initiated the violence. Their legal strategy hinged on this portrayal, aiming to justify what happened as a defensive reaction under intense emotional stress. Only one defense witness took the stand, a forensic engineer who claimed Michelle's injuries could be consistent with accidental strangulation, arguing there was no definitive proof of prolonged pressure or intent. However, under cross-examination, the engineer admitted this did not rule out intentional force, diminishing the weight of his testimony. Meanwhile, Michelle's family delivered emotional and powerful testimony about her character. They spoke of her transformation, devotion to her children, and the tragedy of her untimely loss. Their words helped remind the jurors this was not just a case study. It was the destruction of a beloved mother and sister. Taken together, the evidence, from Mark's confession to established forensic facts and corroborating witness reports, woven with emotional appeals, created a compelling narrative of a murder rooted in obsession and rage, not self-defense or accident. After a tense, high-stakes trial, the jury reached a guilty verdict on June 5, 2014, convicting Mark Castano of murdering Michelle Warner by strangulation and concealing her body in a utility container in a West Texas oil field. During the sentencing phase on June 6, 2014, the jury deliberated for about 4 hours before determining that Castano should serve a 27-year prison sentence accompanied by a $10,000 fine. Though Texas law allows for a sudden passion verdict, which could limit punishment to as little as 2 years, the jury found no such mitigating factor. Instead, Castellano's deliberate planning and the nature of the crime warranted a lengthy sentence. Under state guidelines, Castellano will become eligible for parole in approximately 13.5 years, meaning his earliest possible release would be in mid-2026. The sentencing sparked strong emotions. Michelle's family openly criticized the outcome, expressing that 27 years and parole eligibility felt insufficient given the severity and brutality of the crime. In the courtroom, Michelle's teenage daughter delivered a powerful message. "You are the embodiment of evil. She didn't love you. And we all know that. Is that why you killed her?" Outside court, relatives reiterated their dismay, having hoped for a life sentence without possibility of parole. Despite the conviction and sentence, the family's grief persisted, and their sense of justice remained unresolved. Following the trial and sentencing, custody of Michelle's 2 children, her 11-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son Caden, was transferred to her closest relatives. They have been raised within the extended family, ensuring stability and continuity in their upbringing now that their mother is gone. Michelle's family became strong advocates for broader awareness of domestic violence and psychological abuse. They used their personal tragedy to highlight the dangers of seemingly stable relationships that can turn lethal. Through interviews, community events, and chats with lawmakers, they emphasized the need for early detection, support for victims, and systemic change. Their message: abuse is often masked, and it can end in tragedy if ignored. Mark Castano is eligible for parole in mid-2026, roughly 13 and a half years into his 27-year sentence. This looming eligibility continues to stir concern among Michelle's loved ones and victim advocates, who argue that the severity of the crime merits life behind bars. The case also reinforced several legal lessons. Sudden passion. Defenses cannot excuse premeditated or calculated crime. Jurors must scrutinize intent and planning. Digital and video evidence combined with corroborating confessions can decisively break open murder investigations. Finally, community and policy action remains crucial to supporting domestic violence survivors before tragedy occurs. Not all killers fit the stereotype. Sometimes the danger is someone close. This case tragically underscores the truth that danger often hides in plain sight. According to domestic violence studies, violence typically occurs within families, even when outward signs seem mild or acceptable. In Michelle's case, her partner appeared as a normal co-parent, and their relationship seemed stable to outsiders. Yet behind closed doors, a dangerous dynamic was unfolding. The lesson is stark. Trust your instincts. When conflicts turn dark, take warning signs seriously, even if there are no visible bruises. Domestic violence can escalate tragically. Warning signs ignored until too late. Family violence experts note that abuse often starts subtly, through emotional manipulation, threats, or minor violence, but can escalate quickly without intervention. Witnesses noted Mark's psychotic spells and threatening statements long before Michelle's murder, yet these red flags were either dismissed or minimized. This case emphasizes that early intervention is critical. When typical warning signs are left unaddressed, tragedy can follow swiftly. The importance of listening to survivors and missing person reports early. Research shows that victims of intimate partner violence are often not believed, and missing persons reports sometimes don't receive immediate attention. In Michelle's situation, skepticism about her disappearance delayed deeper investigation until forensic evidence emerged. Had the alarm been raised earlier and taken more seriously, law enforcement might have uncovered clues before evidence was tampered with. This highlights the importance of prioritizing reports from survivors and responding promptly to any sign of danger. These reflections serve not only as commentary on Michelle's case, but also as broader calls to action, reminding viewers and society that abuse cannot be ignored, even when it doesn't fit common stereotypes. It's a wake-up call to be vigilant, supportive, and proactive in protecting loved ones when danger is lurking just beneath the surface. Michelle Warner's story isn't just a tragedy, it's a wake-up call. Behind too many closed doors, someone is silently suffering. If this case moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel For more stories that demand to be heard, like, comment, and share to honor Michelle's memory and help someone recognize the danger before it's too late. Stay aware, stay safe, and always trust your instincts.